Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Showcast, a series of candid conversations from the world of film brought to you by The Film Verdict and hosted by yours truly, Matt Micucci. Tonight, we've got a fascinating one for you. We're diving into Peru's 2025 Oscar submission, Yana-Wara, a stark and enigmatic drama centered on a 13-year-old girl from a remote indigenous community and her 80-year-old grandfather who finds himself accused of her murder. But beyond the shocking premise lies a profound exploration of systemic abuse against women and the worldview of a small town in southern Peru. And who better to guide us through this complex, deeply emotional story than its co-director, Tito Catacora, who stepped in to complete the film after his nephew Oscar, with whom he had previously crafted acclaimed works, tragically passed away just 1 week into filming. Tito shares insights into the film's bold artistic choices, stark black and white cinematography, no musical score, and a cast of non-professional actors, all of which lend the film a uniquely Andean soul. We'll also explore the powerful themes of its heart and the cultural heartbeat that drives it. So fire up an Audiotini and listen to the audio waves as they fly through the air. This is the Showcast. Hello, Tito. Welcome to the Showcast.
Hola.
It's lovely to meet you. We're, of course, going to be focusing on this powerful film, Yana-Wara. I'm going to keep my questions short as we will have the translation for this interview, but I felt we should begin by referring to the fact that this is indeed a posthumous completion of a work by your nephew, Oscar, with whom you collaborated on 2 previous movies. So I just wanted to ask you about how you worked on this film, because it must have been a pretty intense process, both personally and, of course, as far as artistically.
Con Oscar nosotros siempre hemos trabajado.
Let's see, with Oscar, we've done 2 movies already. We've done Pacucha and we've done Yana-Wara. So we've been very used to working with each other.
Es así, entonces estábamos ingresando a etapa de rodaje.
We were starting to film the movie, and unfortunately he passed away. It was a very difficult moment, very difficult for the family because he's my nephew. But we managed to organize and work together, and we made sure that the movie went okay under my direction, under my tutelage.
Bajo mi dirección. No era tan difícil para mí continuar con el rodaje.
It wasn't so much as it was difficult. I understood the visual concept as well as the audio concept because I've worked with Oscar for such a long time that I was able to adequate to the way that we work together. It was difficult, the fact that I wasn't able to work with him because I've been so used to work with him, but we managed to do a piece of work that I think he would be very proud of.
Right, and as you mentioned, this wasn't the first time that you kind of collaborated on a project together, but this is quite an intense, powerful movie. Let's take it from the top. I'd like to know about the origins of the story, because I've read that it's kind of inspired by a real-life meeting that you guys had, a real-life meeting with a real-life girl.
Nos ha servido dos hechos.
It has served us for 2 reasons. In my community, there was a girl, a little girl, that she was treated very bad by her parents, her family, and she used to be kicked out of her house quite frequently. And she mentioned numerous times that she was able to see benign spirits, bad spirits. We are a community, an Andean community of the Aymaras, and in our culture, everything has life. So there are bad spirits as well as there are spirits that protect us. It isn't fiction. For us, it's quite a real experience, something that I've also experienced in my own life. And we wanted to make sure that we translated the way that the Aymaras live into this film.
Because obviously, tradition plays a big role in this film. And also when you talk about your community, this is a film that very much takes place within this context. But there's also a universal side to the story. Was achieving a certain balance also what you kind of aimed for?
Los temas que tratamos en la película son varios temas.
A theme that we talked upon were 2 of them. First of all is that we need to respect nature. We believe that humans don't respect nature anymore. Things such as lakes, forests, and even mines that are exploited
Por
by
eso
humans.
contaminan
Our
ríos,
grandfathers, other family members
lagos,
have taught us since we
depredan
were born
bosques,
that we need to
igual como
respect
las
nature, and it's
minas,
a very important thing
etcétera.
to do.
La
Everything
naturaleza
has
tiene
life,
vida.
and that's why we
Existe
have
un
a
espíritu
benign spirit
llamado
called
Anchancho,
Anchancho,
cumple
which
una
monitors the
función
behavior
muy
of human
importante.
beings. He is the
Él
owner of all
vigila
the
el
riches,
comportamiento
and
humano.
that's why people
Eso
that work
era
in the
nuestro
mines pray
interés,
for
¿no?
him
De
so they can
acá
find
sobre
gold
el
and other
cuidado de la
riches.
naturaleza. También hablamos sobre violencia de género,
In
en
the
este
next theme,
caso,
we
una
talk about
violencia hacia
gender
el hombre
violence,
sexual. Este
most
caso
importantly,
ocurre
sexual
en mucha
violence towards
cultura,
women that happens
ocurre en
not just
otras
in our
culturas,
culture,
en las
but in cultures
diferentes
all around the
latitudes
world.
del
We
mundo.
deem
Entonces
this
nosotros
behavior as
hacemos una
unacceptable,
denuncia
and we
para
want
que
this
se
movie to
pueda de
promote dialogue
repente
between
promover
other
espacios
people,
de
and not just other people,
diálogo
but universities,
en las
between very
universidades,
smart
ya
people,
sean
such
con
as
los
psychologists or
antropólogos, con los
sociologists. And we
sociólogos,
believe that
porque
women have suffered
lamentablemente
for
la
a very
mujer
long time, and
históricamente ha
we want this
sido
movie to create dialogue
discriminada,
between people so
postergada, pero poco a
we can make
poco
sure
se
that
está
women live a much
revertiendo,
better life within
pero creo que
society.
todavía falta por avanzar.
Earlier, you talked about you and Oscar speaking about the style so that, afterwards you pretty much had the way that it was going to look in mind. And I'd like to ask you about those decisions that you made. There's some very strong ones. For example, black and white cinematography, the lack of a music score, all of those things. So yes, I would like to ask you about those choices, those stylistic choices, and how, going back to what you said earlier, they helped you communicate those messages that you also were thinking about.
Era necesario que la película sea blanco y negro. Queríamos
I believe that
concentrarnos
black and
en
white
la
was
historia,
necessary. We
el
wanted the
sufrimiento que
audience to concentrate
padece
on the
la niña
history and the
Yana-Wara.
suffering of
Eso era
Yana-Wara.
nuestro
Having
interés,
no color
porque el
means
color
that they can't be
distrae.
distracted
Es
by
un
other things
mundo
happening. We wanted to make
oscuro,
sure that they were focused
tenebroso,
on the movie
donde
at
hay
hand. We also wanted
atrocidades,
to
la
portray
oscuridad
that it is a dark
juega
world.
por ello,
That's why
¿no?
it was black
Por
and
otro
white,
lado, también
where atrocities did
conceptualmente,
happen within the
el color
movie.
negro en
Places
nuestra
that they filmed at,
cultura
such as
significa
mines, they
poder.
were just very
No es
dark
la
places.
muerte,
They
no
also
significa
talk about
muerte, significa
spirits and
poder,
benign
significa
spirits. They feel as
autoridad.
though they had to
Entonces
make the movie
hablamos
black and
en la
white.
película
Black
el
in their
poder
culture,
del
in the Amara
anchancho. El
culture, it
anchancho
means
tiene
power,
poder.
not so
Hablamos
much
el
as death.
poder de
In
las
Western
deidades.
society,
También
it means
hablamos
more
inclusive del
authority.
poder de
They wanted
la
to portray
asamblea comunal, de
Anchanchu's
las
power as
autoridades
well as the power of the
comunales.
assembly. What they
Hablamos
wanted to
también
do
que
with that
queremos
is to empower
empoderar
women.
a la
We saw
mujer,
that
porque
Mama Taya
Mama
was the
Taya
one that had the power
también, ¿no? O
within
sea,
the
tiene
community,
poder.
and we wanted to make sure to add all these points into the movie.
En cuanto a la música,
The
¿no?
music,
Nuestra película
the
no
movie has
lleva
no music.
por la siguiente
That is an
razón. Es un
Andine concept
concepto
because
que
the
acorde con
Occidental
nuestra
men, the men
cosmovisión
from Europe,
andina.
pick
El
up a rock
hombre
and they think
occidental o
as
europeo
nothing. They don't think that the rock
observa
has
una
life.
roca, por
Whereas
ejemplo,
in my
y
culture, in
describe,
the
lo
Andean culture,
congela.
a rock
O
has
sea,
life.
no tiene
We
vida
think,
para él.
is the rock happy?
Mientras que
Is the
para el
rock
hombre
sad?
andino,
In the same way
una
that
piedra
when they
tiene
made the
vida.
movie, they thought about the
Entonces, el
mountains,
poblador
the
andino
lakes, the
cognitivo, su
mines,
pensamiento es muy
and while they were
distinto. Él tiene que
filming the movie,
sentir
they
cómo
were
está
thinking
esa
about
piedra.
how
Alegre,
all these concepts,
triste.
all these things were feeling.
Entonces,
Were they
en la
feeling sad? Were they
película
feeling
yo
happy?
quería
And they wanted
sentir
to
cómo, o
sort
sea,
of
las
portray
montañas,
these
los
feelings
ríos
into the
igual.
movie without
Todo eso
any
quería
music,
sentir.
and we felt as though it was necessary.
That's very interesting. And I would like to maybe ask you a little more about this. From what you said, it sounds like you're kind of this film too, and maybe the other works that you have done in the past. Do you see it as part of experimentation with cinema, or even better, a search for a distinctly Andean cinema?
Es cine andino porque
I believe that it would
incorporamos
be Andine, not so
elementos
much
andinos, las
experimental film.
actitudes,
We add various
comportamientos,
elements of the Andine
alimentación,
culture,
sobre medicina
language. We speak
andina.
the Aymara
Nos
language in the movie.
expresamos lo que
Also, the
somos.
attitudes and the
Nosotros
behaviors,
nos
as well as the
exponemos
food and
ante el
other
mundo
Andine
y de
medicine that we
valores
used throughout the
culturales. Por
movie.
ejemplo, tenemos
I
es
believe that
la
this movie
la
showcased our
ética que
culture to the
existe en
world.
nuestras
We
culturas.
expressed to the
Cómo
world
podemos
our
hacer
values,
juzgamiento
our
de
moral,
los
our
delitos
ethics,
y
as
sobre
well as how
todo
we
el
deal
vínculo
with
que
certain
tenemos con la
crimes and
naturaleza.
how we have such a
Convivimos con la
strong bond
naturaleza.
with
Es
nature.
parte de la
We
familia.
feel as nature
Somos
is
toda
part of our
una
family
familia, ¿no?
because it
Por
is the
ello creo
world
que
that we live
sería
in,
una
and we wanted
película
to portray
netamente
our entire
de la
culture
cultura
into
andina.
the big screen.
Considering that, I also wanted to ask about working with the actors who, as I have read, are non-professional actors. And obviously this, for me as a viewer, brings an added sense of realism to everything. And of course, an added sense of power to the performance of the young girl who, of course, plays the title character.
No son actores profesionales.
They're not professional actors. Professional actors typically speak either English or Castilian, in this case, Spanish. We always work with people within the communities, within the Andean communities. So we look for them in the community. They don't just present themselves because they're not actors, right? And once we pick the people that we deem as they would be fit for a movie, we train them. This could take 2 months, 1 month, as long as it takes. And in the words of Andrei Pawlikowski, a director needs to know the actors that he's working with. In this case, they're not professionals. So if they make a mistake or they're not able to perform a certain task, maybe we take off the video and we just leave their audio and stuff like that. So we accommodate to some of the actors that we work with because we understand that some of them are not professionals, but we appreciate that they are so involved within the process and they work very hard to make sure that the film comes out great.
In fact, I wanted to return to the young girl because not only is her performance powerful, but also she has to act without actually speaking, which I always heard from many actors who are friends or who I know, that can be very difficult. Was it a difficult process to, you talked about training the actors, but was it difficult to specifically train her to deliver this very nuanced performance?
Antes todavía en el guión, en la primera versión, la niña hablaba.
The first version of this movie, the girl actually spoke, but we decided to take it off. So in the movie, obviously, she didn't speak. The girl was very agile. She was very smart, a natural, we would say. So she didn't suffer quite much. Well, we taught her for 2 to 3 weeks, and it wasn't a daily work. It was very intermediate. So she wasn't working every day. And we think that she did very well. I do have a concept that is that there are no bad actors, just bad direction. We were careful when directing the actor, especially her, since she's a kid. She was immature in comparison to other adults, so she was slow in preparing, and we had other minor issues such as that, but we just managed them. We had patience, and being a professor actually made it much more easy for me to deal with this because I deal with kids. So this was very normal for me, and we think that it worked out very well.
I do want to ask you maybe one final question, just very briefly. We talked about so many powerful things that this film tries to communicate, but we also evoked spirituality. And so I just wanted to ask you a very simple question to end our conversation. When did you decide to become a filmmaker, to talk about these things through the art form of cinema, and why?
Oscar, que era mi sobrino, él me ha
It was thanks to Oscar, my nephew. He always wanted as a kid to become an artist, a director. So Oscar and myself, I took him to get trained and to get help, and just by default, I also learned with him. I didn't have that much of an interest to be a film director, but I learned just by being next to him and helping him out. And I was the only adult that was sort of with him, so I felt as though I was forced to be with him and just learn about the things that he wanted to do. And thanks to that, we were able to create our production company, Aymar.
Un pequeño quiero agregar, o sea,
I just wanted to add that we do all types of things within the production. We don't just make movies, we also write them, we edit them, and we take care of everything that has to do with the film. So we're very involved within the film.
The true authorial touch. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us. Thank you, Tito, for your answers, and Carlos for your translation. Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Gracias a ustedes por la entrevista. Muy agradecido. Muchas gracias.
Well, folks, that is going to do it for this episode of the Showcast. I'd like to thank my guest, Tito Catacora, for joining us and sharing the story behind Yana-Wara, as well as Carlos Fernandez for his excellent translation. Join us again for more excellent conversations on a forthcoming new episode of the Showcast on the TFE Network, brought to you by the Film Verdict. And find TFE Network on your favorite podcast platform to check out our vast selection of content from the world of film, or visit us anytime at filmverdictnetwork.com. Till the next time, this is Matt Micucci signing off. See you soon.